Look at the time now.
Hey!
Gather up the book, pop in the DVD, sit back and enjoy the super awesome BVM. Yar! Hello bookworms, hello filmsters, I'm Katana and welcome back to another BVM. And man, today, oh man, I am so jazzed up. Wanna know why? Well, today we're going to be exploring the story that has a very particular element that I just so freaking adore. That's right. Today, we're going to be focusing on the idea of puzzles! As if I couldn't be any more nerdy, puzzles are definitely one of those great treasures I ever had the pleasure to experience. Sometimes I like to wrap myself up with the occasional jigsaw puzzle. Other times, you can just hand me a DS and the Professor Layton game and I'll pretty much be busy the entire night. Alright, I exhausted all my hint coins, so I'm pretty sure this is the right answer.
That should do it.
Schnitzel! There's nothing wrong with giving your brain a little problem every now and then, but for me, it's practically an addiction. Gotta let go of that Rubik's Cube at some point, you know? But I was in that mood again and thought, hey, how about a book puzzle? Which is why I was so stoked to tackle on James Dashner's The Maze Runner. Hopefully by the end of this, I'll be wanting to run towards the sequel. Let's just start the review. Boy, talk about hyping myself too early. Reading this book felt more like a chore than leisure time on the hammock. But we'll get to that. Let's just cover the plot real quick. A 16-year-old boy named Thomas is brought to the community called the Glade, populated by other boys around his age. Like everyone else, his memory has been wiped clean of certain details, all except his name. He tries adapting to his environment, picking up slang, a chubby friend named Chuck, and whatever info about the maze he can grab. He finds himself into minor trouble here and there, but the initial story is set into motion once the first girl ever to appear in the Glade arrives in their box with a grave message. The clock begins to tick for the Glares as they are forced to start figuring out the secrets of the maze. Alright. Story's pretty solid, unique. Now let's see who's running the show. We have our main, Thomas, who asks way too many questions for his own good. He can act against the crowd looking for those answers, but for the most part, he tries to lay low and keep to himself whenever the chance is given. Chuck is Thomas's only friend in the Glade. He's introduced as an annoying kid who likes to crack jokes, but as the story progresses, his soft spots start to show and it makes him a little more easy to sympathize with. Teresa is the chick / possible romance for Thomas? I don't know, she's stuck in the coma until the final third, so not much development is made for her other than being this living, breathing messiah to all their problems. Albie is supposedly the leader of the Glade, and Thomas doesn't seem to get along with him that well, not as much as with Newt, the second in command. There's Captain Galley, a low-level rival to Thomas who just doesn't like him from the start, believing that he's seen Thomas before during a painful healing process called the Changing. And finally there's Minho, the cool Asian runner who's a mentor to Thomas in the ways of becoming a runner, and they both create a decent friendship. Okay, so I didn't particularly enjoy this read as much as I thought I would, but it doesn't mean that all of the book was a letdown. The imagination is amazing. I mean, the things Dashner brings into his world is truly his own. Mechanical blob monsters called Grievers, the purpose of the cliff acting as both a banishment site and eventually a key point to figuring out the maze. And the puzzle, of course. Using 2 years worth of maps collected, all 8 sections forming a letter once combined together. Pretty complicated, but that's how a puzzle should be at some degree, and the way it's designed is pretty ingenious. And the romance? More like a bromance! With Teresa knocked out for most of the story, there was more time to develop that brotherly bond between Thomas and Chuck. After a couple days, Chuck opens up to Thomas about his own thoughts of not knowing his parents, and Thomas makes a solemn oath to bring Chuck out of the maze to fulfill that wish. Just like a true bro would. Yeah. And now the bad. And the best way I can sum it up? Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. I'll start with the language that's pretty well known around the Glade. Now, there were times around the beginning where at first, I thought it was a great idea, but as I kept reading, I started to see how weird and out of place it was. And that wasn't even my real issue. I mean, with some aspects of speech lost in their memories, where did this kitty slang even come about? And after the second or third chapter, it starts to become obvious what these words are supposed to censor. Clunk means this, and shunk actually has two meanings. And because that slang was just so out there, I decided to dedicate this review to incorporating that language when appropriate. All except one that, for the life of me, I could not figure out. Good dat. What in God's name is good dat? Was it just a huge typo for got that? Because sometimes that worked. Other times it made sense saying good den. And then there were those times where it was just alone and I don't know. And while on the subject, let me just talk a little bit about the writing style for this. This book just overloads you with repetitive thinking. I mean, the majority of Thomas's thoughts are just questions about everything he's experienced, and then will continue on for the next couple chapters until a new experience comes up so he can ask more questions about it. It was just too overwhelming. I mean, you could probably jump into any chapter besides the first and still learn what's going on as you read through. Now, it doesn't necessarily hurt the story, but it does lead to my next topic: pacing. Do not be fooled by the short pages in each chapter because it doesn't move the story any faster. I mean, it takes 5 chapters to end the first day. Why? Some chapters actually start the second after the previous page instead of a certain amount of time, or at least in another location. Would combining all the shorter chapters into one really long one and letting the scene play really be all that bad? And those repetitive sentences I mentioned before do play a role on the pacing. I mean, half of it's new, while the other half's "What does it mean? I'm not telling. What does it mean? I'm not telling. What does it mean? I'm not telling. Something happens. What does this mean? Meh, probably something." Once you get to the actual dealings with the maze, the plot starts to become an awesome read. But that's just it. The writing style pretty much ruined it for me. Ouch. The book side didn't give much of a cheerful beginning to this review. But let's see how the movie fares. Here's the film adaptation to The Maze Runner. So the movie begins similar to the book. Thomas is rising with the box, scared out of his mind about what the hell's going on, and when the light shines on him, the rest of the community is revealed. Unlike the book's friendly greeting though, Thomas is launched out of the box with the boys gathering around him like he's fresh meat on the prison yard.
I can use some help in the kitchen. Hey, we got a runner!
Run, squeal for a piggy squeal! You ain't never getting out! Thomas trips, staring long enough at the better view of the glade until the movie makes a real Lion King-esque title sequence. Well, I know one thing this kid can work on. Biceps. Seriously, he's been thrown around like a sack of potatoes in less than 5 minutes. He's locked up until Albie, leader of the Glade, comes to talk with him about any personal information worth remembering.
Like, can you tell me anything about yourself, who you are, where you came from, anything at all? Can you tell me your name?
I can't remember anything.
Stop! Why doesn't he remember his name? In the first chapter, it was the first thing he could possibly remember. Come on, movie. Look at him! He's shaking like a chihuahua with caffeine shot through his veins. Don't strip him of everything! Albie manages to calm Thomas down and show him around the glade. He learns the purpose of the box, meets second in command Newt and get the idea of runner stuck in his head, and is taken to a vantage point overlooking the maze, where Albie lays down the 3 main rules.
You only have 3 rules. First, do your part. Second, never harm another glader. Most importantly, never go beyond those walls.
The next scene introduces Chuck, who does show more of the innocent side the book talks about, but is it me or did Chuck ever have an accent?
Don't worry. You're doing better than I did.
Thomas immediately starts disobeying rules by walking straight to the maze, witnessing the runners Ben and Minho come back. He tries to get a closer look, but is jumped by Gally, the same boy who greeted him in the box.
We gotta stop eating like this, Granny. Alright, calm. Just relax. Hey, what the hell is wrong with you guys?
For me, this moment right here pretty much shows how this Thomas is different from the book. The book's Thomas asks way more questions than just as he was told, while this one is going for a more savage beast approach, looking more psychotic and dangerous to the rest of the group. Honestly, it's interesting to see how one could react to this situation, either scared or withdrawn, or aggressive and unpredictable. So, after Thomas realizes he would have been smashed by the walls closing, the next scene puts us on the tribal party that never happens in the book. I mean, who the hell throws a bonfire party after God knows how long?
How long have they been looking? 3 years?
Well, you either lost the memory of telling time, or you're just a shucking idiot. It was 2 years, you fool! Continue. Also, Thomas seems to get his answers pretty quickly. I mean, Newt just pretty much spilled the beans about the maze and the runners like it wasn't a secret for a first day newbie to know about. Makes you wonder what Gally put in his drink.
It's a trade secret.
After Newt exhausted all of what took 15 chapters for book Thomas to know, they take another tour, where Gally challenges Thomas to sumo wrestling? What the shuck? I'm not even kidding, there's a ring, 2 guys, it's full of wrestling. What does this have to do with anything?
Not bad for a greenie, huh? Thomas. I remember my name. I'm Thomas.
Oh, I get it. He gets his ass kicked so he could remember his name. Which is odd because he never forgot his name in the book. Albie even said he was going to get his name back in like a day or two, so why is everyone cheering if it was expected already? Names don't need cheers. Maybe something on the lines like, Sarah. I remember now. Sarah. I shucked a girl named Sarah. I'm not a virgin. So, after the lamest possible way to gain respect, they all call it a night as Thomas induces some dream memories without the help of a grease serum, and is awakened by Albie the next morning to carve his name on the side of a wall, making him an official Glader. Now, this also didn't happen in the book, but I'm actually liking the change. You know, I like this whole stance on love and community. Not to mention this Albie, he's going for the route of a kind leader and not the brutal one in the book who's all tough, hard-headed, and just a plain jerk to Thomas at times. Later, Thomas is helping out the garden, asking even more questions on escape, and Newt sends him off to get more fertilizer. He goes to what I assume is the Deadhead's forest, since the grave and all, and he's surprised by Ben. Ben attacks Thomas, shouting phrases like, I saw you. You did it. I saw you. And Thomas struggles long enough until bashing Ben's head with the skull of a Marowak. He brings the panic out in the open, getting the other boys to solve the problem for him.
No. Alright, lift this shirt.
I didn't mean it.
Lift this shirt.
No, please.
Put him in a pit. Come on, everybody, help.
No. Ben, I can get Ben. Calm down, Ben.
Whoa! Movie. I've been very appreciative about how well it's all been going, but when did this all turn into The Walking Dead? Think I'm lying? Listen to this explanation.
It's called the changing. It's what happens when someone gets stung.
Stung, bit, it's all the same, but the changing happens on an entirely different manner. In the book, when they get stung, they did get sick, but there was medicine for that called grief serum. It healed them, but took them through the changing, where for a period of time, you get a glimpse back at some of the memories lost. This is not the zombie apocalypse, you have medicine for this clunk! But no, the movie has no hope for the stung, so their only plan is to banish Ben to the maze and die. Literally, they surround him with spears and push him to the other side.
Please, no, I can get Ben, please. Listen to me.
You know, the community is starting to look a bit more grim and dark, so I'm just going to take this and be on my way. Yeah, I'll see you later. Movie, you take care of yourself now, movie. Okay? Yeah, don't follow me. Don't text me. So Ben is officially crossed off the community list, and everyone tries to forget what happened. Thomas experiences another flood of memories full of important phrases from the book.
Wicked is good.
Everything's going to change.
Wicked is good.
And he wakes up early to see Minho and Albie run into the maze, which leads him to ask Newt even more questions, which at this point I'll be happy to correct.
But why would Albie go into the maze? I mean, he's not a runner.
Things are different now. Albie went to retrace Ben's footsteps before sundown. Look, are you gonna help?
Why would he retrace Ben's footsteps? The book had a better excuse when their main goal was to look for a dead griever.
Okay, so he's gonna go back to where Ben was just stung.
Albie knows what he's doing, alright? He knows better than any of us.
What does that mean?
Every month, the box sends up a new arrival. Someone had to be first, right? Someone had to have spent a whole month in the glade alone. And that was Albie.
Wrong again, Newt. The first to be sent to a maze was a group of boys, not just Albie.
When those other boys started coming up, one after the other, he saw the truth. And he learned that the most important thing is that we all have each other. Because we're all in this together.
Oh, there was nothing wrong with that. I just really love the bond. Community power! Woo! So after this bull clunk weather change, yeah, because it never rained in the glade, they wait for Minho and Albie. Right as the colossal walls start closing, they finally show up with Albie badly injured. Seeing as they might not make it, Thomas shimmies his way through the maze. He learns that Albie's been stung, but still tries to save him anyway? What sense does that make in a world where grief serum doesn't exist? And what made Ben different from Albie? He was kind of a douche. So there won't work out, so he had to go. So night comes around as Thomas and Minho keep Albie safe by tying him up on vines, and they begin to hear the sound of a griever.
Stay with me, Minho. Okay, just a little more. We're almost there. Sorry, Green.
But what about the community? Every shock fight for himself! Thomas slides under a crevice in the wall, witnessing the mechanical spider legs of this griever everyone's been talking about. After it goes away, Thomas secures Albie and tries to find a way out, suddenly getting jumped by this sack of grotesque fluids and enters the chase scene. Hey, if I'm not cursing through this review, neither can you, so get with the program, plunkhead! Now, this is where I get confused on whether or not to praise this scene, because in the book, the maze of the dimension is nothing but huge walls with only running involved. In this film, however, the maze becomes unpredictable with various wall sizes and gives a chance to do some nice parkour action. I can't lie and say that this doesn't amplify this chase in any way, even if it is just one griever and not four. And my god, just look at the way they finish off this monster. The way in the book was nowhere near this epic. I mean, really. A jump throw to the side? Lame! While the cliff doesn't exist in this movie, it does provide us seeing the maze as more than just a simple trail. It worked to their advantage. With the combination of the walls changing, Minho's knowledge, and Thomas's bravery, they fooled the griever right into a clever trap. That's a double win on community point and runner smarts. The scene cuts away from the death and shows the survivors making it back to the glade, sharing their epic tale of taking on the griever. A gathering is then called as they decide what to do with Thomas. We got Gally's stance.
He has to be punished.
And Minho's stance.
Look, I don't know if he's brave or stupid.
Whatever it is, we need more of it. I say we make him a runner.
A runner? What? Minho, let's not jump the gun here, all right? All right?
What the shuck chuck. I love to try, but epic fail. Right before a decision could be made, the box starts acting up again, bringing an actual girl into their lives. And this is very surprising, seeing how no one is calling dibs or having synchronized boners at the moment, but when Thomas arrived, everyone was joshing and giggling and saying what they were gonna do with him. I think these boys have other personal issues to work on other than the maze. So they kept her in the hut, hoping she'll wake up and give some answers. Thomas, on the other hand, decides to go back into the maze, searching for answers from the griever last night.
So what's the plan? You gonna go out and dissect that thing all by yourself?
I will if I have to. Have the other runners left yet?
The other runners quit this morning. After Albie got stung, they're not in any hurry to get back out there.
Quit? They can't just quit! That was one of the first rules Albie said!
First, do your part. No time for any freeloaders.
Sadly for them, labor unions do not exist in the Glade, so those weeping shanks need to do their jobs before everything goes to clunk. So Minho gathers up an unqualified crew to accompany Thomas. They find the dead Griever, scrapping it limb from limb until Minho finds a weird metallic tube. They bring back their findings, but Gally just about had it up to here for Thomas breaking all these rules. Newt finalizes the punishment for 1 day in the pit, then afterwards it's off to being a runner, which of course Gally is not so fond of. Now a runner, Minho decides to show Thomas the map room.
The maze. All of it.
Holy clunk. The time it must have took to build that thing. I mean seriously, banish the shank who even tried to destroy this work of art. Minho goes on to explain his masterpiece as the Medjaks come around to tell them that the girl is awake.
Hey! Throw one more of those things!
And throwing pebbles at them like a cave woman.
Girls are awesome.
I agree, Chuck. Girls are awesome. And these guys are just idiots. It's 1 against 20. It's not like she's spiking them with spears or has a machine gun filled with stones. She's lazily tossing them over one spot. Come on guys, seriously, just spread out and grab the broad. Thomas finally calms her down as she lets him into her girls only treehouse. She introduces herself as Teresa and they both sit high in the sky sharing memory problems and the note that was in their hand coming here. She then hands him 2 vials of cool blue liquid, which can only be the grief serum mentioned earlier because they tested on the sick Albie, which eventually calms him down.
Well, that worked.
Alright, but I think it's too early to say that Wicked is good. The book gave him the stuff every week, and here they just get 2 antidotes? That's kinda cheap. Gally rounds up Thomas and takes him to the pit for the night, talking about how everything is changing once he arrived. And this is a good moment to point out that Gally is still around. In the book, he ran off after the official decision for Thomas was made. It's not bad right now, but it does raise some brows about what this film has planned for old Gally here. Chuck visits Thomas during jail time, sharing their moment as they did in the book, but to me, this feels a little more natural. Yeah, the movie skips out on the many scenes Thomas and Chuck had in the book, but at least these moments don't feel so forced. Their relationship isn't rushed at all, just taking his time with the bromance. It's all good and fun until someone starts making fanfics between the two. And I'm a little scared to find out how much of that exists. The next morning, Minho releases Thomas to start his first day as a runner. Going to reach area, they reach section 7, where they find themselves in the Blades and the remains of poor old Ben. The tube from yesterday starts beeping and leads them to a long bridge. It opens up a wall, revealing more secrets to be explored, but once scanning from this sewer hole, and the whole maze goes against them. And once again, I am simply amazed. Look at this! The Blades are shifting into walls, trying to trap them in. The stone walls themselves are breaking apart to try and crush them. I'm fine with the idea of grievers, but that's all the book had. The movie designs the maze with wicked traps, making it even more challenging to solve. It's not just the mechanical bugs here. The maze itself is its own beast. An emotionless, rock-solid beast. Yeah! Minho and Thomas come back to share their news, thinking there might be a way out, but Gally calls bullclunk on that. Thomas tries to pick yet another fight, but Teresa comes around saying Albie is awake. They try to talk with him, but he's too traumatized with the memories he witnessed, with Thomas somehow involved. The drama gets even hotter as the walls are not closing for the night. Well, would you look at that? The other 3 doors finally open. Now they could cover more ground to make up for the last 3 years, but instead, the walls decide to troll and bring undeniable death to them all. Hilarious. The grievers start grieving, and once again, it's every man for himself! They all try to find a place to hide, but the last get picked off one by one. Now in the book, the grievers were a little bit more organized, 1 per night, to make them solve the maze faster. But in here, ho ho ho, it's a Glader buffet! Oh, for the love of God, not fire! I can't handle the heat! Oh wait, I forgot it was metal. Let the chase continue! For a brief second, it looks like they're standing a fighting chance. But nope, false alarm. Chuck then leads the gang into a wooden house where I am not believing my eyes, it's freaking working. Little pigs, let me come in. I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll shove my giant scorpion tail down this poorly designed hut. By bad luck, Chuck is grabbed by the arm of death. But that's okay, because the community squad got his back! Oh man, they're holding on to him for dear life. The syringe is pulled out, but Albie goes on full-on Hulk and smashes the arm like it's a shucking pinata, scaring it away and saving the fat boy's life. All is good. Until Albie is attacked and taken away.
Get them out!
Albie, you were a terrific leader. And just to be clear, this version, not the books. Seeing the glade as a burning hellhole, Gally finds Thomas and gives him a good old whop to the face. He starts blaming Thomas for everything, and Thomas finds it the right time to infect himself and go through the changing. He gets a clear vision of his earlier dreams and finally wakes up in Teresa's arms, learning that Gally's in charge. Yeah, that's a thing now.
What happened? Gally's taking control. He said we had a choice. Either join him or get banished to Sundown with you.
You see what happens when you keep Gally for too long? The crazy shuck becomes a leader. Which doesn't even make any sense because Newt was supposed to be in charge next.
Green Bean, meet Newt. When I'm not around, he's in charge.
Well, it's a good thing he was around then.
Newt's still alive, but Gally's calling the shots. What the hell? Thomas starts to explain his memories to them, saying that the Gladers are all part of a test, experiments observed by both Thomas and Teresa who work for the wicked people. So how do these guys react knowing that the two in the pit are partially responsible for them living in the glade?
It doesn't matter. Any of it. But what does matter is who we are now and what we do right now. You went into the maze and you found a way out.
Yeah, but if I hadn't, Albie would still be alive.
But I know that if he were here, he would be telling you the exact same thing. Pick your ass up and finish what you started. Because if we do nothing, then that means Albie died for nothing and I can't have that.
Okay.
The community, guys! It's so real up in this glade. After that heartwarming speech, they are brought up to the tyrant Gally, carving off the names of his fallen brethren. He gets this crazy idea to tie him up as offerings to the grievers, hoping that if they're killed, all this weird changings will stop. Like I said, you put a crazy guy in charge, you are shuck well going to get some weird ass punishments. Thomas plays dead long enough to bring about a rebellion against Gally, forcing him to let them leave. He tries to convince a few more to join in, and even Gally himself, but Gally stands his ground and watches them leave. Thomas leads them to Section 7 filled with daytime grievers to jump into the fray and fight off grievers coming their way. Chuck and Teresa try to figure out how to get the door open, coming across a code only Minho can decipher. But in the middle of giving the code, he's jumped by a griever and oh my god, this is just beautiful. One of the Medjacks sacrifices his life to save Minho. Community! 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 They solve the code, kill the grievers with the enclosing walls, and enter this underground hallway leading to a ruined lab of the scientists watching over them. Thomas then activates a video recording of Anna Page, the leading director of the maze trial. She goes on to explain the world problems of the sun scorching down populations and the flare, a deadly virus going around and infecting people. In the background, a group of gunners ransack the place, leading the doctor to end the video on a suicide. In the book, the wicked people are still alive when the Gladers finally finish their trials. So, I'm gonna give this point for the book. Alive killing is much more traumatic. After the video is done, a door opens for them to walk through, but Gally makes one final showing. I really don't know how, seeing as the walls closed them off and he would have no idea on how to enter. But hey, more tension for the end, am I right?
I belong to the maze. Just put down the gun. We all do.
Well, thank God! It's about time someone speared this crazy punk right through his heart.
Thomas?
Jump! The community does not fail to surprise, even on this last minute. For the safety of his good friend, Chuck jumps in the way of the bullet, sacrificing his life for Thomas. You were a good kid, Chuck. Your death will not be in vain! Thomas mourns over the body, but a sketchy group comes in and takes him away into a helicopter. We get a quick scene of Miss Page surprisingly up and well, declaring phase 2. And as the helicopter flies through a deserted city, the Maze Runner finally comes to a close. Now I have made my decision for this episode, but while doing research through the opinions of other booktubers, I realized how far in the minority I am. Well, I just don't care. This show is based on pure, honest opinions. So to play with that dislike bar however much you want, because no matter what, the movie was better than the book. That's right, I said it, come on, bring on the boos, bring them on, give me your worst.
Boo, you stink!
I did not deserve that. I was ready to hate this movie. I mean really point out every flaw it had, because I saw the movie first and I didn't remember much of it, so I thought it was bad. But after reading the book and revisiting the film, it became more clear how good this movie actually was in terms of a film adaptation. First off, because the movie is all about visuals, there was no reading into Thomas's repetitive thoughts and his questions, no reminder of the plot every 5 minutes, none of that at all. Oh, sweet relief. There actually wasn't much use of the language Dashner created, and though it wasn't necessarily bad, it wasn't needed since no one addressed an answer for that kind of slang rising among the group in the first place. And the pacing definitely increased tenfold by getting to the good points, which a book could have also accomplished if it didn't act like every tiny detail that came out of Thomas's mind and mouth was so important. But the main reason why the movie won was for one, and one reason only: characterization. You can have an awesome plot, you can create the biggest saying no one could ever dream of, but if you can't get people to like your characters, that's just asking for trouble. I really tried with Chuck and Newt and Mean Hope, but to be completely honest, I did not care at all for these characters in the book. They could have lived or died and I wouldn't have flinched in the slightest. The development for these kids was so flat and one-dimensional that I wouldn't be able to tell them apart if they were nameless. They all pretty much shared the same two emotions, anger and sarcasm. On the other hand, the movie's gladiators were shocking lovable. They stuck out for one another, they fought for one another. There were 3 amazing sacrifices, all for the sake of the community. I mean, these gladiators were trapped in the maze for 3 years, but their hope never seemed to falter so much, and this just all became quite an inspiring tale. Having good characters is crucial to a story because they give you something to care for. I like the movie's characters because they enjoyed each other's company at some level. When reading the book, I got the impression that no one liked each other, which is pretty stupid. They're all in this together, right? I was hoping for Chuck to give me a second thought on the book, but as I said earlier, it was just forced. He started out as a prankster and a little punk just like the rest of the Gladiator. Then all of a sudden, he comes up with an emotional story out of the blue? That doesn't work. At least in the way Dashner wrote it. Very abrupt and not much time to slowly evolve that sensitive side. The Chuck in the movie started off as innocent and stayed that way, making him a character worth caring for. But that was just him. The rest of the book's cast were either too thick-skinned or emotionless to make any connection. Now, I'm not a mind reader, but I'm guessing a majority of you are thinking the same thing. Katana, what the shuck are you smoking? Obviously the book is way better than the movie because they changed so much of the stuff. It's terrible if it's not exact. But is it really? I mean, I'm not going to say that all of the changes were great, except for the telepathy between Thomas and Teresa because, let's be honest, that little quirk was just random. But the puzzle to solve the maze in the book with the maps was way better, and Gally never died in the book. I haven't read the sequel, so depending if he does or doesn't play a big role in the Scorch trials, this could really hurt the film adaptations. But by the way I see it, not much of the important stuff was changed. They did reach their goal on finishing the maze trial, even if the events in the middle didn't follow the original story word by word. I wasn't expecting to make a second reference to this, but this kind of follows the same route as the Walking Dead comics with its TV adaptations. Some characters are still alive that aren't in the TV show anymore, and some events are tweaked a little, but they do manage to get the big moments across. With the Maze Runner, they covered their tracks. We don't get the cliff, but the section with the blades and the visible griever hole replaces that and adds more to the action. Gally stuck around for the majority of film, but I was still interested to know how would the story go if he didn't run off. And that wasn't my only question. What if they didn't have an abundant supply of grief serums? What if Gally died in the end? Overall, the book and movie took two different paths to tell this story. The stubborn against the compassionate. 4 grievers against this unpredictable maze. Stone me if you must, but the movie just won me over on this round. Well, that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on The Maze Runner, and you do not have to agree with this shuck face. Read the book, watch the movie, make your own opinion. I'm Katana, and I had enough of this puzzling matter. So, I'm just gonna go now and help Layton solve another mystery. Good that? Good that. See, even there it doesn't make any sense. I mean, does it even have a meaning? Oh, God. See you later. I mean, what the shuck does good that even mean?
I think you should just leave this one to me.
Shut up, Luke! Hey guys, thanks again for watching the entirety of this video. If you haven't already, why not click on the subscribe button on the side to stay updated on the next review? Didn't like my opinion for this one? Well, why not check out my last review on Percy Jackson, which satisfies the majority of everyone's opinions? Got a book/movie you'd like me to review one day? Well, just leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to check it out. In the meantime, I'm going to go hide before someone gets the idea to toss me into a pit of grievers. Bye!